Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories.
The first story is called, "We Have to Do It Before We Leave." I worked as a cook for roughly a year. The shift I worked in particular, which were weekends during the morning, was always full and very busy overall. Most times, the morning crew that consisted of 5 to 7 cooks, depending on the day, handled the orders. And once things slowed down at around 2, the swing shift would handle the cleanup and restocking from the morning's aftermath. It was set up so that those that took the beating in the morning can take it easy in the last few hours of the shift, and so that the swing had things to do if the restaurant was empty. We all have daily tasks that should be completed before the shift ends, which are small, like cleaning parts of the kitchen or labeling stuff. And then, we had bigger weekly tasks that took a lot of time and limited use of certain things in the kitchen. The current general manager at the time gets a promotion and we get a new one that doesn't quite like the structure of how we operated. He no longer allowed the morning crew to leave without cleaning up and completing our tasks. Okay, no problem. Let the fun begin. Every Sunday, during the busiest parts of the shift, I and a couple of co-workers would begin the weekly tasks that we were forced to do. Otherwise, we would get memos. Fries? Not operational till done being emptied and thoroughly cleaned. You want us to make pancakes or any type of meat? Sorry, you have to wait till we're done cleaning and disinfecting all the grills. The kitchen is backed up? Sure, let us finish cleaning all carpets first. This went on for about a month. Naturally, things got really bad for the restaurant as customers started leaving, complaining directly to the corporate website, and we got bad reviews on social media. This also caused a lot of overtime because most would also start to do it right before the shift ended and didn't leave till we finished a few hours later, taking their sweet time. The previous general manager, who is now the district manager, called in a meeting with all of the staff to see what was happening, and once things were explained, he removed the general manager and promoted a shift manager that deserved the position and knew how things were done. The next story is called, "It Says Check Signature." I was working the register as a lead cashier. And one wonderfully busy day, I had the pleasure of interacting with a rather lovely human being. This guy and his buddies were standing in line, not being too obnoxious, just a little loud. They ended up at my register, dumping their goods on the counter while complaining about the wait. After thanking them for their patience, I tried to make small talk, but the guy decided to change the tone. He started making rude comments to his friends about cashiers. I get it, not my favorite job either, but it pays the bills while I'm in school. So, after I'd run through all his items, he swiped his card through the machine. As I was hitting the fun sequences of buttons to end this excruciating encounter, he decides he's not done being a jerk. "You didn't ask to see my ID for my credit card. It's your job to make sure I'm not using a stolen credit card." He elbows one of his buddies to witness this mockery. "Sorry. The system is running it as debit. Did you put in your PIN? It's not a debit card, it's a credit card. It's really not that hard." He holds up his card to show me. "Look, it even says see the ID on the back of the card." I don't know about other retail stores, but we had already moved away from checking signatures on the back of cards against the signature line, because by that time the transaction has already gone through. We don't have a definite policy of asking for ID as long as the back of the card is signed. "Alright, cool. Can I see your ID? Thank you. You should have done that to begin with." He opens his wallet and begins fishing through his wallet, looking for his ID. After a moment, a blank look crosses his face. "I don't have it." "That's okay. I can take another form of payment." "I don't have another way to pay." "You have to take the card." "I'm sorry sir, once I've asked for ID, it's store policy that you have to show it. So I know we have a policy for this process when it comes to buying things that require a legal age." I just went with the logic that the same is true for credit cards. I was pleasantly surprised he didn't throw a fit at this point, but I had used his own logic against him. After the shuffle of shame into his group of friends, one of them moves forward, swipes his debit card and pays for the stuff. I thank them for coming in as they head out the door, laughing. But this time, it wasn't at me. The last story is called, "Just Switch." I once worked in the IT department for a company that managed some utilities and infrastructure. They had multiple facilities throughout their state, and some extensive redundancy measures in place to keep the buildings connected in case of an emergency. One of the most important of these measures was their hot site, a backup facility that housed a replica of their computer network infrastructure. The hot site was located in a separate building from the main data center. So even if the main building was knocked offline, the hot site would still be available to take over operations. Of course, simply having the equipment and policies to recover from an emergency isn't enough. So the company also had an emergency preparedness committee with representatives from several key departments. The committee held regular simulated emergency drills, where a member would write and direct an emergency scenario and the others would rehearse the process of recovering from it. The IT department's contributions to these activities were frequently marginalized by the rest of the committee, who firmly believed that the only appropriate way to handle any computer problem was just to activate the hot site. After all, it is a complete, functional replica of our main systems. Why bother doing anything else when the problem can be instantly solved by simply plugging in a different computer? Well, the thing is that switching to a hot site is easier said than done. Think of it like the spare tire in your car. It's there if you need it, but it doesn't automatically replace a flat tire. You need to spend some time and effort to take the old one off and put the new one on. And once you finish your road trip, you generally want to get the tire properly replaced rather than continuing to use the spare. And if you're having engine problems, you don't solve it by putting on a set of different tires. And so on. The point is that a hot site doesn't solve every problem. And even if it does, switching to it will take some time. The IT representatives explained that every time, but were always ignored. Finally, one of the network engineers was selected to lead one of the emergency drills. And this guy was fed up with everybody else always suggesting the hot site as a solution. Once the committee had taken their seats to hear what crisis they would be averting that day, the network engineer informed them that the building they currently occupied had just been demolished by a storm. And none of the computer systems there remained. Time to activate the hot site. He grabbed his stuff from the table and left the building. And at that moment, all of the other departments realized that they had no clue how to even get to the hot site. The other IT representatives, being directly responsible for the upkeep of the facility, knew where to go and were out the door only moments after the network engineer. Everybody else was considerably less prepared to relocate to a different building. If they had looked out the window as the IT people left, they might have seen which direction they had turned out of the parking lot, but nothing more. After all, the hot site is designed to be isolated from anything that would damage the main facility, so it is located a fair distance away. The last of the Emergency Preparedness Committee arrived several hours after the IT department had all arrived on site. Not wanting to admit that they had no clue where they were going, they had no better option than to drive from building to building across the state, hoping that their next destination happened to house the backup facility. By this point, the drill had taken much longer than the schedule had originally allowed. And the network engineer called it off, noting that the site would probably be just about ready to be brought online if they had actually bothered to start setting it up. They didn't, of course, since that would have disrupted the entire network. The IT department wasn't allowed to direct another drill for quite some time after that. But at least everybody else was much more reluctant to suggest the hot site as a catch-all solution.
Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, and comment down below. Have a great day.